You know, they're selling you all wolf tickets, people. You're eating them right up.
Hey, pussy, are you still there?
I back. Trust me, I back.
But I'm not impressed by your performance.
You'll do nothing. You'll do nothing. Shut your fucking mouth, you'll do nothing. You'll do fucking nothing. Not one of you'll do nothing.
I'll tell you what, bro. You know, I was out there, I was fighting all the hitters, bro. You ain't fought no hitters.
Come on, guys. It's normal.
I'm not saying I would fight you. I would kill you.
John, do you think? John, do you think I'm just gonna sit there and let you kill me, John? I mean, really?
No, don't be scared, homie.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. The double champ does what the fuck he wants.
I'm gonna beat you into the living death. I mean, maybe that's your job, but where I come from, you know, people like that get slapped.
That's fucking illegal.
Nick Diaz, you just shook up the world. How's that feel?
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Yeah, this is a simulated death match. And you haven't simulated anybody's death yet.
I said it last year. We're not here just to take part. We're here to take over.
What is the game plan going in against him?
The game plan is you go in there, hit him with some good shit, don't get hit, and come home with a pocket full of cash.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Everybody's on steroids. The whole UFC, everybody.
I'm gonna go home tonight. I'm gonna drink a Coors Light. That's a Coors Light because Bud Light won't pay me nothing.
Do you want to be a fighter? That is my question.
Any of you radio personalities think you want smoke? Call me Mr. Chimney. I want smoke.
Yes. What is up? What is up, MCR family? Another daily edition of Mixed Combat Radio where we cover all things boxing, MMA, and everything in between. And obviously, it's Monday. It's review day. Get hyped. What a weekend. Obviously, it's UFC 229 review, World Boxing Super Series, Inoue versus Payano, DAZN, Matchroom USA's first endeavor, and of course ESPN Plus having a couple cards as well that we can get to. And obviously the return of, I keep forgetting this for some reason, maybe because the fight wasn't as great as I hoped it to be, but Srisaket Sor Rungvisai, the return of the king. But obviously it's, for anyone listening, shout out to Ivan Diaz, Aaron Munoz, Main Event Mark, everyone in the chat. Hope everyone's having a great day out there. Call in 323-870-4051. Press 1 to get in the queue. Hit the like button, share the show, subscribe. Patreon.com/Mixed Combat Radio. All that stuff aside, all that YouTube shit. It's UFC 229, like, fallout. Like, it is seemingly a nuclear bomb in the combat sports world that everyone, even outside, obviously, our sphere of influence and just our community, our culture, they're talking about it. I'm seeing all of the sporting world talk about it. I'm seeing a lot of people outside of the sporting world talk about it. It's massive. And before we even talk about really the fight itself, break down all the action on the card, and plus everything else, some breaking news right before the show started. Dana White coming out to TMZ and saying that basically UFC 229 did not do 3 million pay-per-view buys, but did way over 2 million. For those keeping track, this would be the first ever pay-per-view event in combat sports history to do over 2 million pay-per-view buys without the name Floyd Mayweather Jr. That's good. Shows the combat sports is, sort of moving on in a sense. That's a good thing. Shout out to Johnny in the chat. Go check out him on SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, etc. I think he has an album or a single coming out very soon. Good friend of the show there. This is really good. This is a massive event. And, of course, it unfortunately had the post-fight brawl, the post-fight riot, whatever you want to call it, that happened afterwards. That is completely suffocating everything else that happened this weekend. And there was so much good that happened. Even the fight itself, Nurmagomedov versus McGregor, that was a fantastic fight. I can't wait to talk about that in terms of a technique perspective, analyzing what actually happened in the cage. But unfortunately, we do have to start off with this post-fight brawl again because it is suffocating the news cycle, me included. It's something that is just so massive, and I think it's going to hit on a pop cultural level. Like, expect shows that parody stuff to parody this. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we see SNL skits. I don't know if Family Guy is still running, but Family Guy, South Park, those types of mediums that parody and satirize culture, they will satirize and parody this because it was transcendental. It transcended our community, and maybe because of that, we have to talk about it first. And because of some more breaking news, the Nevada State Athletic Commission, per ESPN, will actually follow through and file complaints against Conor McGregor as well as Khabib Nurmagomedov. For all those wishing that Conor face some punishment because Khabib had his purse withheld, his $2 million guarantee purse withheld. And on top of that, obviously the idea that he will both face suspension and fine. McGregor will also face that as well. Also the mention of the three fighters that jumped Conor McGregor, one of them being Nurmagomedov's brother. They also will face some sort of suspension and fine. I'm using the word "and" very specifically. Anthony Marnell made that very clear. Bayside. Oh, man. Shout out to Stephen A., man. Hey, he gets paid, man. Gotta salute to him, man. Get paid for whatever you do, man. That's all I gotta say. But it's obviously going to develop into something a lot more serious. There will be criminal, investigations. There will be obviously the commission's investigations. These fighters are all going to be sidelined for a bit. John Kavanaugh, Conor McGregor's head coach, was on the Joe Rogan podcast this morning, and he mentioned that 2019, the summer of 2019, a year basically from now, is when they're going to look at fighting next, maybe in March, in MSG in New York. Don't be surprised if it is a whole year, due to other reasons than just this. Because this is no longer a first-timer for either Conor McGregor or Khabib. Khabib was involved with a brawl at a World Series of Fighting event with the Diaz brothers about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, in California, I believe. So this is all going to devolve into something so much worse. And I don't know what's going to happen with these two men specifically going forward. Obviously, it's going to be a developing story, though one sort of silver lining in it is that hopefully for the commission's sake, we're going to find out relatively soon. They said within 24 to 48 hours, they're going to determine everything about this case with both Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov. So hopefully because of that, we get some resolution rather quickly here. Instead of waiting out weeks and weeks, maybe months, to see how this thing develops. It's Johnny, that's funny. So Johnny in the chat saying, I honestly think Conor gets drunk before fights. It would explain his stamina issues with the laughing face emoji. Hey, proper 12 whiskey, man. Am I right? Get hyped. And quickly, I really only have 1 point on the brawl and the riot, because really all my points that I could say, I talked about it at that night, Saturday night. So check out that media reaction video that I clipped from the main show, so you can see it. All my points still stand. Basically, all my opinions are the same. If you want a really in-depth conversation about it, me and some Patreon members discussed it on yesterday's Patreon-only show, Championship Rounds, on patreon.com/Mixed Combat Radio. Go check that out. That was a good conversation we had, and I think compared it obviously to Riddick Bowe, Andrew Galata, compared it to Mayweather, Zab Judah, Tyson versus Holyfield 2, even the Nashville brawl and Strikeforce. Like, there's a lot of comparisons we can have here. Bowe Galata seems to be the best comparison, to be quite honest. If you haven't seen it yet, go watch it. It's what happened Saturday, but instead of 45 seconds, it was 8 minutes. It was the longest fucking brawl I've ever seen at like a sporting event. So it was truly horrendous, and that's really like the iconic, like, drinks being thrown in, popcorn being thrown, like whatever sort of condiments being thrown into the ring, and as the fighters were leaving, that was iconic. one of the trainers of the fighters fell down and collapsed due to chest pains. He had to be carted out. They thought he had a heart attack. That event was just, marginally worse than what we saw on Saturday, but it's a good parallel, a good analog to what we saw. So if anyone wants to go back and check that out, go down memory lane. I encourage it. But I also encourage you guys to check out this op-ed by David Castillo on Bloody Elbow. The title is UFC 229 Opinion. Thugs and Beasts Before the Law. Event was just business as usual for its rotten culture. And it's a really good in-depth article. I definitely implore everyone to go check it out. Great stuff by David here. But that headline really caught me, and obviously it's a really long article. Go read it. It's worth the read. But the idea that obviously I'm upset that it happened, right? Like, I think a lot of people are like kind of upset that it happened. It sort of it ruined the great night it was. But we all know that it will be accepted by this culture and this community, the combat sports world, because we do accept it. Like Riddick Bowe, Andrew Galata, like we still accept those guys. Tyson Holyfield, we accept those guys. And this sport accepts all, and that's a good thing at times. With a guy like Bernard Hopkins, a guy that is ex-con, came out of prison and had a great boxing career. That's a great story. It is. But then we also have Greg Hardys of the world that come in with their domestic violence background. Floyd Mayweather, who has literally been convicted for beating women. We accept it all, unfortunately. That's an indictment on this culture that we have. It is, on some level. Like, we have to accept that our culture in combat sports is not really the cleanest. It just isn't. And unfortunately, we know that business is as usual for these two guys. So whenever we get that rematch, when it does happen, we know they're going to be airing promos of that brawl, right? We all can probably agree on that the UFC, everyone's going to be talking about, it's going to be a main narrative of the rematch. And we accept that. But unfortunately, outside of that, and not just the law, because obviously that's a good point about the law coming in, and they're going to have their opinions about what happened, and it might be very different than our opinions about what happened. It's not just the law. It's the outside world. I saw a lot of outside media members of combat sports, let's say baseball beat writers, football writers, have really negative opinions about A, MMA, and B, just fighting overall because of events that happened like Saturday. I think that as a culture of combat sports, we have to, at some point, figure out a line. It's great that we accept all, but sometimes that does hurt us. That does put us in a niche community. It does put us into a niche market. And I am always for expanding the sport. I'm always for getting more eyeballs on the sport, getting more fans on the sport, and the fighters to be seen by more people. I'm always for that. So that goal of mine and many others, I believe, including people listening right now, we have to realize that some of the antics we encourage is counterintuitive to that goal. And again, if we decide as a community that we don't care and we're okay with being a niche community, then that's fine. Like, that happens. But at least I think that needs to be a conversation that we need to be having. With your boxing friends that you talk to and communicate with, or your MMA friends, whoever it is, start having those conversations. It's worth having. It's a deeper level of conversation that we could be having. But putting all that to the side, because it is a little bit of a rant, let's get to the actual fights, the actual action, the nitty-gritty of everything that happened on Saturday night, and obviously a little bit of Sunday morning as well, and get to the actual fucking fights, because we had some great stuff. Anthony Pettis versus Tony Ferguson, cannot wait to talk about that. Inoue is going to be, he's going to be probably an all-time great. Like, I might be a little bit early, but
are you off your tits? Have you been smoking something?
I don't know, Eddie. I feel like Inoue is heading down that path. But anyways, we're going to get to that later, obviously. So let's get to UFC 229, because like the title says, like the weekend is, that did dominate. It did over 2 million pay-per-view buys. We have to start with that. We're going to start from the top and work our way down. Obviously, Khabib Nurmagomedov submitting Conor McGregor via fourth round neck crank officially, though it wasn't really a neck crank, to be honest. There's a lot of interesting perspectives on this fight, to be fair. Some of them I agree with, some of them I don't. I think this fight was more competitive than the narrative that's being put out, that Khabib was so dominant. And yes, in theory, he won the first round 10-9. He won the second round 10-8. Third round, he lost. And the fourth round, he won. That seems to be a little more dominant towards one guy. Completely agree. But I think the scorecard probably doesn't quite reflect how well Conor McGregor did in negating the ground and pound of Khabib. Because outside that second round, which really, let's be honest, in the first 20 seconds, Khabib knocked him down with a vicious right hand, overhand right. Beautiful shot. But in the first 20 seconds, Conor McGregor was deeply hurt, and everything changed. The entire flurry Khabib had on the ground, how he got Conor against the cage to go to the takedown, all was predicated on that knockdown. So interesting enough, it wasn't really that Khabib was able to figure out the grappling of McGregor and start dominating him. It's not that. He actually hurt him on the feet. And that is just such a fascinating aspect of the fight, because it was assumed just because of the pressure and the grappling of Khabib, he was eventually going to get him down and beat him up. But actually in the first round, we saw a little bit what it would be like if Conor didn't get hurt. If Conor was allowed to just stay on the feet and not worry about the shots of Khabib. Where in the first half of that round, Conor's landing a little bit, but not really landing a lot. Not enough to really be dominant anyway. And then Khabib gets the takedown. But Conor's up against the cage, able to keep his back up against it, not really get pulled out from under and have his back pressed against the mat. And he was able to negate pretty much all of the offensive output and ground and pound of Khabib Nurmagomedov. That was great stuff to see. That was an improvement of McGregor. We have to agree with that. And interesting enough, obviously the improvement for Khabib is his striking. His striking looked far better than it has in the past. You can look at the Michael Johnson fight, it's a very different Khabib on the feet. The right hand, in terms of just form and technique, was far superior than what we've ever seen. So that's why they didn't expect it. Even John Kavanaugh, the head coach from McGregor, said on the Joe Rogan podcast today that right hand was surprising. That's the only surprising thing in the fight was that right hand. Because Khabib usually wants to use his jab on the feet. He's not really a guy that uses that right hand like a Chad Mendes, for example. And then, like I said, Khabib hurt him in the second round. Everything changed from there. The third round's up for debate whether Khabib took it off or got a little bit winded and needed that second win in the fourth round. Because obviously Conor was allowed to basically stay on the feet, defend the takedowns, and land some good shots. Not enough good shots, like his coach said, but enough that was clearly a Conor McGregor round, but never really hurt Khabib. And obviously in the fourth round, he got him down. I think Conor McGregor was a little bit tired at that point, obviously. Khabib was able to take the back, lock in that choke or neck crank, whatever you want to call it, even though it was neither, and basically tapped out and gassed Conor McGregor. Interesting that his coach did say that was the game plan in a sense, to take it deep. They wanted McGregor, like in the second round, to when he does get taken down, not work to get to his feet, negate the offensive pressure and output of Khabib on the floor, and just get to guard and battle from there and wait it out. And then by the third or fourth or fifth round, Khabib will get more tired, and then you can start landing your shots more. That was actually the game plan. I thought that was an interesting game plan. It's one that I may not have agreed with. Because obviously Conor McGregor doesn't have the greatest gas tank. So you're betting on Khabib's gas tank to be worse than yours when yours is suspect. I think John Kavanaugh, as a coach, should have known better. However, I saw enough in this fight where I think a rematch down the line, not next, not immediately, even though Conor McGregor wants that, is intriguing. We do see improvements from both men here. And, obviously, if Khabib was able to get away with maybe a 6-month suspension, something a little bit light, I think Khabib versus Tony Ferguson makes the most sense. Again, Conor McGregor against the winner of Nate Diaz versus Dustin Poirier seems to make the most sense. Other lightweight fights you can make, obviously Kevin Lee versus Justin Gaethje makes a lot of sense. Sort of, also with Jose Aldo rumored to be moving up to lightweight. Shout out to Jose Aldo. And Eddie Alvarez rumored to be re-signing with the UFC. Eddie Alvarez versus Jose Aldo. And you get a lot of clarity in the lightweight picture, because right now, obviously, because of the idea that there could be really lengthy suspensions here, there's concern about what will happen. But again, if both guys make it out with lighter suspensions, the 6 months, style where it's basically you lose a fight, those are the fights I would make. But again, great performance by Khabib. His improved striking was great to see. And again, we knew that his grappling and his top position is insane. Benjamin saying in the chat, Matt, there's no point of a rematch. There's no point of an instant rematch. But 2 years on the line, I'm completely okay with a rematch. Game planning, strategy, and also time to improve your technique. And in 2 years, that's enough time. That's a significant amount of time. Yeah, Conor could have the right game plan, the right strategy, and also bring in the right guys to spar with. No offense to Dylan Dennis, but Dylan Dennis doesn't have the top position work that Khabib does. And very few people do. But you need to bring in somebody that really has that level of wrestling to work with you nonstop for the next year or two. That's what I would say. Plus, Conor McGregor, again, Mufung was saying, I think a rematch ends the same or worse for Conor. Khabib has him mentally now. Let's not forget Conor's the one posting right now on Twitter saying, I lost the match, but I won the battle next time, Conor McGregor is the guy that came off a 2-year layoff of MMA and chose Khabib. Everyone in his team told him to take a tune-up. He didn't. Conor is a crazy motherfucker. I think he's fine. I think take 2 years of actually training with wrestling and take tune-ups in between. Take the Nate Diaz fight. Take a Justin Gaethje fight. Fights that are obviously geared towards more of your style. And in the meantime, work on your wrestling. And again, 2 years' time, make some money in the meantime, and you should be good. Let's go to the co-main event. Tony Ferguson versus Anthony Pettis. Obviously, it was stopped in between rounds. Duke Rufus, Anthony Pettis' coach, stopped it due to Anthony Pettis breaking his hand. I thought that was a great stoppage. To be honest, I wish we saw more corner stoppages in MMA. But Tony Ferguson, he's back, man. Salute to him. He is one of those guys that he is so sneaky in how he delivers his offense and how quick he can deliver it. Because 1 minute or 1 second he'd be, fighting the hands, standing in that Muay Thai position, and all of a sudden, boom, elbows in there. All of a sudden, uppercuts, all of a sudden combinations. Goes to the body, works the legs, and plus obviously his grappling is pretty phenomenal. He is just an extreme talent. He is obviously a interesting dude, a guy that most people I think have a hard time connecting with, but you watch him fight for any period of time, how can you not be a fan of him? This is the guy that went 5 rounds beating the shit out of RDA, 10,000 feet in the air in Mexico City. Okay, this guy's an insane freak athlete. Came back 5 months after a catastrophic ACL injury and surgery. This guy is otherworldly. He might be alien. That alien class of just musical artists and people like that. Not actual aliens, just people that are just extremely talented. He's of that ilk, 100%. Shout out to Tony Ferguson. Can't wait to see, hopefully, him versus Khabib. That makes the most sense. Dominic Reyes versus OSP. Reyes defeating him by unanimous decision. Obviously, it's just nice to have a legit, homegrown, built, light heavyweight contender. We haven't had that in a while. We've had guys like Anthony Smith that have come up, get some heat behind him, but he really is a middleweight that come up. So it's a little bit different. And plus, he's not a prospect. That guy has 40-something fights. Dominic Reyes is 10-0 with 9 knockouts. now, and he showed, I think, really good technique. He showed good power, late fight power as well. That was good to see. Good counter wrestling. Obvious game planning issues I see with him. You can easily devise a game plan to beat him. He seems to be one of those guys that just goes in there and fights, and he's pretty naturally talented as well. He definitely needs a few more years before he fights the likes of Alexander Gustafsson, Daniel Cormier, John Jones. That top three, they'll give him some work. They will. But good performance from Dominic Reyes. And again, good to see a light heavyweight prospect again. Or I should say contender. Derek Lewis. God. Thank you. Whenever I question why I watch this sport, I just watch Derek Lewis. The guy is sent from the heaven. Truly. For all the bullshit we had with Khabib and Conor post their fight, all you need to do is watch Derek Lewis's post-fight interview. And it all goes away. First off, I saw on Twitter someone say that Derek Lewis is the best, worst fighter they've ever seen. That is 100% true. The guy is 15-1 in his last 16 fights at heavyweight. That's insane. Also, he has huge, massive knockout power that I really don't know is paralleled in MMA right now. I just don't. I really don't see it. Obviously, Mark Hunt was able to get him out of there, but Mark Hunt's just way better skilled. Like, the technique of Mark Hunt is just there. Mark Hunt's a K1 World Grand Prix heavyweight kickboxing champion. Derek Lewis is a guy from Houston that just beats motherfuckers up. Like, there's a little bit of a difference there. Because Volkov was piecing him up. Volkov was the better fighter of the two. He hurt Lewis early and often. However, Derek Lewis, he just needed that one punch, and 11 seconds before he was about to face a crushing defeat, he had a crushing knockout victory. Shout out to Derek Lewis. Shout out to the post-fight interview. Cannot wait to see him back in there. Michelle Watterson defeating Felice Herring via unanimous decision. Good performance by Michelle Watterson. She was just a better skilled fighter in there. Her kickboxing definitely won her that fight, in my opinion. I was able to hurt Felice Herring and then obviously take her down and work her better grappling there as well. Who's there for Miga defeating Sergio Pettis? That was a tough, close fight. Sergio Pettis, though, just a little bit outclassed in a way. Bayside saying, was Lewis doing MMA version of rope-a-dope? I thought he was bluffing like he was hurt. Lewis came out, I think, on the Ariel Helwani show today and said that he actually broke his finger right before the fight doing pad work. I don't know if I'm not doubting that's true, but I don't know how much he was really hurting there before heading in the fight. He's a guy that has notoriously been hurt heading into fights. So I don't know if it was him necessarily hurt in the fight or him just hurt, taking shots, and because he was hurt, physically not being able to react to it in a normal manner. It was weird. It was. But that's heavyweight MMA. I'm going to just briefly go over the fights in the rest of the undercard. Vente Luque defeating Jalen Turner, KO punch, insane knockout. Aspen Ladd defeating Tanya Evinger via TKO, great finish by Aspen Ladd. Scott Holtzman defeating Alan Patrick via KO elbows. That was some hellacious elbows. Go watch that shit. Yannick Kudetskaya defeating Lena Landsberg via unanimous decision. Just dominant. And Nick Lentz defeating Gray Maynard. RIP to Gray Maynard. He should definitely retire. And Tony Martin defeating Ryan LaFair. Vicious knockout there. Great stuff. And overall, a really fun event. Like, this was a pay-per-view that, obviously, if you can sort of devoid yourself, or depending who you are, it doesn't matter, of the post-fight brawl, this is probably the best event of the year. Like, from top to bottom, in terms of entertainment, relevance, drama, this sort of has it all in a lot of ways. And obviously, like, moments. Like, even the post-fight brawl is a moment. Tony Ferguson coming back after 5 months, and that moment with Eddie Bravo post-fight, that's a moment. Derek Lewis and Joe Rogan's interview, where Joe Rogan asked Derek Lewis why he took his pants off, and Derek Lewis said, "My balls were hot," and then Joe Rogan just said, "I understand," and then moved on. That was a moment in MMA. So it sort of checks all the boxes you need for event of the year. I've watched it back about 1.5 times now, the whole event. It is exciting. It's still, like, even the Khabib McGregor fight, like, I know what happens, but I was still, like, suspenseful watching it again. Great MMA and just great fighting overall. Like, it just has that factor where you can watch it over and over again, and it's still suspenseful. Let's move on to the boxing cards of the weekend, because we do have a lot of boxing events to get to. Let's start with the one that matters the most, even though it's maybe not the biggest one, though that actually can be disputed now. Because even though the Matchroom USA card, thinking like, oh, it's Matchroom USA, it's on DAZN, like, it has the bigger platform in a way. More eyes are probably on it. It was prime time. World Box Super Series was at 4 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. That would assume to be the bigger event. But both events are on DAZN. And DAZN is rumored to have only about 15,000 subscribers at this point. Or around that number, I should say. Alleged. We don't know. It's just interesting to see, like, really, in terms of the culture of boxing, which one gets more play in this week. Because obviously, the World Box Super Series card, in the terms of just those three fights, Inoue versus Juan Carlos Payano, Ken Shiro versus Milan Melendo, and Kayla Rake versus Edward Trinovsky. Which, by the way, the placement of these fights made no sense. The fact that Inoue was not the main event made no sense at all. But digressing, because I don't know how Raylick versus Trinovsky became the main event in Japan. Like, was I the only one confused about that? I hope I'm not. Because even like Ken Shiro should have been main event over Kayla Rake versus Edward Trinovsky. But let's start from actually the top down, because Raylick, Trinovsky, while a competitive back and forth fight, much more so than I thought. Trinovsky actually did pretty good work off the jab. Raylick was just the better fighter. Clearly, he seemed a little bit off, to be quite honest. When we look at, let's say, like the Rancis Bartholomew fight, Raylick looks far superior than what we saw him yesterday. It was weird. It was a weird off night for Raylick. It's not one where you can sort of look at it and go, oh man, he's gonna get Prograis and not Terry Fleming, and then Josh Taylor that work. I doubt it. Thank you, Potential Lunatic, for backing me and saying, how is Inoue not main event in Japan? Or even Ken Shiro. Like, even though Inoue is the much bigger star of the two, how do you not put a Japanese champion as the main event in Japan? And Inoue is a legit superstar over there. Like, him and Ryota Maeda, they get tens of millions of views back when they were on like Fuji TV. So it's just weird. It doesn't make any sense to me. Moving on, Ken Shiro versus Milan Melendo. Ken Shiro looked fantastic. His lateral movement, his work off the jab, always improving. At 13-0, he is an extreme talent. And Melendo is a legit veteran, former champion, a guy that's really only lost to certain people at the very top. This is a great win for him. Can't wait to see what's next for Ken Shiro. And plus, obviously, that power is still there. TKO and Milan Melendo. Impressive stuff. All those guys over there in Japan have that pop. Like Kenshiro, Kozai Tanaka, Inoue, Maeda. They all have insane power. Shout out to them, man. Yeah, Sam's agreeing with me. Thank you that everyone is in agreement that Inoue not being the main event made 0 sense. But whatever. And the true, people's main event, Inoue versus Carlos Payano. Obviously, not much to talk about this fight. Inoue's first 2 punches, a 1-2 that landed, viciously knocked out Payano. He feinted the jab up top, then brought it down low, shot out the 1, the 2 right behind it, and caught, Payano square on the jaw and knocked him out. Insane stuff. Bayside saying Japan needs VADA testing. Ken Shiro is VADA tested. because he's with the WBC. He's their champion. I don't know if Inoue is VADA tested, to be honest. But you know what? Bayside, I might be wrong about this, and there's some things I'm wrong about. But I want to say World Boxing Super Series has like a testing clause in their shit. I could be wrong about that, but I remember them talking about it early on in the process. I'll go do a little more research on that. Bayside. Basically saying Warren hit Payano like 1,000 times and didn't do that. Yeah, but also Rashid Warren isn't really a knockout artist. Like, no offense to Rashid Warren. Rashid Warren's a great boxer, but, I mean, he just doesn't have the knockouts like Inoue does. Like, Rashid Warren is a little bit feather-fisted. Like, I'm sorry. Like, Rashid Warren has 16 wins and 4 knockouts. That's not a VADA issue, Bayside. That's not a PED issue. That's one guy has pop and one guy doesn't. Let's be completely honest there. And again, Inoue is just that good. Like, technically, he is just so sound. I really get a sort of like faster-footed Mikey Garcia with obviously way more power, pound for pound. That's sort of the sense I get from Inoue with how fundamentally sound he is, how drilled he seems in his combinations. He's so accurate with the shots. Everything is off the jab. Just completely, textbook boxing. And potential lunatic saying if I was Burnett or Tete watching that, I don't know what I'd be thinking. I think he's about to do this to everyone in this division. Like, I think he's about to run through this tournament. He's about to run through Tete and Burnett. Let's be honest here. Like, Inoue just might be that motherfucking good. He's already a 3-division champion at 16-0. He is amateurs. He has the amateur pedigree behind him. He might be a potential all-time great. Like, I know that might be crazy to some, but think about it. After this tournament, we have to start thinking about him in that way, in that top 5 pound for pound. Basically, saying Tete can crack too. He can't. No, like, don't get me wrong. Tete can crack. Ryan Burnett's a good, like, really good boxer, but I think Inoue might just be that guy. It just has that sense to me. When I watch him, when I analyze his tape, he is just something otherworldly. He is. I think Zolan Tete, Ryan Burnett, like I've said, great boxers, but they're great. Inoue might be all-time great, and that is just vastly different. Knocking out Payano in that way is just I think it kind of shocked the world, and the boxing world, not the whole world. Like, it's obviously not transcending that like that, but for those of us in the sport, we always knew Inoue was something special. But knocking out Payano just with your first 2 shots, and knocking him clean shots. That was something that was really unexpected. Like, even the biggest Inoue fans were not expecting that. They couldn't have. Payano's only loss is to Rashid Warren. And that was a tough, durable loss, and he beat him in the fight before that. Payano is not something is not a guy you really want to fuck with. And Inoue said, this guy, he's a nobody. He pulled out his Conor McGregor with that 1-2.
Who the fuck is that guy?
And knocked him the fuck out, okay? He might just do it to everyone. He might be an all-time great. He might be the GOAT. I don't know, but we're seeing something truly special in an era where I think we're seeing a lot of special things happen. I've been saying it for a while. This generation right now, across the map, is so extremely talented that we're going to see a lot of great fighters, Hall of Famers out of this generation. And the generation coming up right now, as early pros. Yeah, there's a lot of guys to watch. And Inoue definitely showing that he is somebody that the entire boxing world needs to pay attention to. Moving on, though, DAZN and Matchroom USA in Chicago. Jesse Vargas versus Thomas Dulorme. It's an interesting one. I'm not going to say I called it because I did pick Jesse Vargas. But I was saying, hey, this isn't going to be an easy fight. This is going to be competitive. Thomas Dulorme can play spoilers. He doesn't get favored on the cards like against Ugas, but he plays spoiler. He's not a guy to mess with. And also, we have overrated Jesse Vargas for a long time. And we've underrated Thomas Dulorme for a long time. And that, I think, came to this weird concoction where the fan base sort of scoffed at this fight being competitive. It was competitive. It wasn't worthy of a main event in your inaugural DAZN card as Matchroom USA, obviously. But it's a competitive fight. And it turned out to be a draw. Was not shocking at all. Thomas Dulorme gave Vargas that work. He was just the better athlete. Vargas is a bad athlete. He's a good boxer overall, but he doesn't really have insane power. Yeah, he knocked out Thomas Dulorme late. Thomas Dulorme is not the most durable guy. Doesn't mean much. And Jesse Vargas doesn't have the speed, the explosion to really deal with guys that do have that speed and explosion. It's just clear. And then also, I don't really sense any game plan from him. He's a guy that has switched camps a lot throughout his career. I think that has hurt him overall. But yeah, I think it was a competitive, fun fight, but it was sort of a, it is what it is. Sam in the chat, shout out to Sam, get Patreon, saying, bad idea to put it on the same day as UFC 229. I want to say this event was scheduled before Conor McGregor Khabib. Not to really give them a cop-out, but I believe this event was official, like press releases out, posters up, and then like a few days later, McGregor Khabib was announced. I want to say that was the dynamic. Because I truly believe that they would not have done this afterwards. That just makes no sense, Gary saying he almost, and many included myself, thought he stopped Timothy Bradley. I don't know why everyone knocks his power. Is Bradley durable? No, but Bradley can get touched. And he did knock out Bradley. I was at that fight. He hurt him. But he didn't knock him out. He did not finish him. He lost a very clear decision. Let's not forget that he also, Gary, lost every round until that punch. He's just not that good. Like, Jesse Vargas is a top 10 welterweight because the top 10 is top heavy. Like, that top 5 at welterweight is really good. And then everyone else is just a little bit, above average. Lamont Peterson, Jesse Vargas, those guys aren't, elite fighters. They're good. They're really good. They're above average, but they're not the greatest. Gary saying it looked like the ref stepped out. Yeah, it's because he thought the bell rung, remember? I don't remember that. It was, I forget the ref's name, but he retired after that night because of that. He said, I'm too old. I didn't hear it at all. I thought I heard it. So I stepped in. But yeah, I forget who that ref was. I'll look into that, Gary. But that ref retired. I remember that happening because of that event. But digressing, let's go to Artur Beterbiev versus Callum Johnson. Fantastic little 4-round, little war. Callum Johnson landing some good shots against Artur Beterbiev. Beterbiev knocking down Callum Johnson several times, obviously knocking him out in the 4th round. I don't know really what to say other than this was probably one of the more competitive fights we've seen from Beterbiev in a while. Even like the Enrico Colling fight, even though that lasted rounds, it wasn't really competitive. It wasn't really a hard fight. Callum Johnson gave Beterbiev that work. I forget who asked it earlier in the chat. I think it was either Ivan Diaz or Main Event Mark. But they talked about, Beterbiev looked really good, but his defense looked bad, basically. I'm paraphrasing. But yeah, his defense has massive flaws on it. It's just, he's hittable. He doesn't bring his hands back to his chin for defense. when he starts throwing in combinations, you can catch him mid-combination rather, I'm not going to say easily, but you can time it. Like really good fighters, because let's be honest, Callum Johnson isn't a great fighter. Great fighters in that division are going to be able to time him because he's predictable. He has very basic patterns of combinations, and plus his defense is just completely lacking. However, obviously he has just insane power, where he'll just touch you and it hurts. It seems quite obvious he has that pop. But guys like Dimitri Bivol, I think those guys, like Potential Lunatic, he thinks he would win. I think Bivol's just too talented. His work is off the jab, off of clean defense, clean offense, clean transitions from offense to defense and back and forth. Beterbiev is not that. If you go in, let's say, because you can go find fights of his amateur career, but you can go find, like, let's say, Alexander Usyk versus Artur Beterbiev in the amateurs. And you can see a guy that is working off the jab boxing and how they can sort of really frustrate and give Artur Beterbiev a ton of issues. Fantastic boxer, but fantastic fighter, I should say. He's not really the greatest boxer, but definitely hittable. Definitely a guy that I don't see being the guy in the division post Adonis Stevenson. Gary asking Stevenson versus Beterbiev, who you got? I got Adonis Stevenson. Beterbiev is too hittable. I think he gets caught with the laser left hand and gets hurt. And also, Beterbiev, while he does have pretty good recovery, he does sort of get chin checked sometimes. You see him get stunned. He's been dropped before, so that's concerning at the very top level, to be quite honest. Sam, bringing up something that's a little bit more to the UFC side, but I wanted to sort of mention it, saying good to see a new woman bantamweight prospect in the UFC in Aspen Ladd. The division has been poor since Ronda left. What do you think of her? I think she's highly talented. Highly talented. Go and look at her record. She's beaten a ton of good fighters. She is somebody to watch. I absolutely agree with that. Anyways, let's move on. Daniel Roman versus Gavin McDonnell. Good fight overall. TKO late, 10th round for Daniel Roman against Gavin McDonnell picking up the win. Though it was a fight that I thought Daniel Roman has not showed really any improvement in. And also, it still doesn't seem to be the guy in the division. Even though Ray Vargas is taking a little bit of a sabbatical due to a injured shoulder and surgery for that shoulder, Ray Vargas coming back from injury, I think he beats Daniel Roman. Isaac Dogbe, I'm an admitted Isaac Dogbe fan, but let's be quite honest here. Isaac Dogbe knocks out Daniel Roman. Daniel Roman is, when people call Mikey Garcia basic, they're truly talking about guys like Daniel Roman. And I don't mean that to be as much of a slight as maybe it is, but I also do mean it to be a slight. He's highly predictable, and I don't think he really has the biggest pop. I don't think he has the best work rate. Potential Olympics saying Roman looked classy. He doesn't have much pop, though. He just looks decent to me in a way that, like, he just might be like the Danny Garcia of the division. Where obviously they're an elite fighter, but they're not as elite as these next 2 or 3 guys. I get that sense with Daniel Roman, where he's good. He's going to beat a lot of those guys in the top 10, top 15, but they're just those few guys I do not see him beating at all. It just makes no sense for me to pick him against guys like Ray Vargas or Isaac Dogbe or Lewis Nery. Lewis Nery coming back on ESPN Plus, had a quick third-round knockout over, what was his name, Jason Canoy or something like that. It is what it is. Obviously, he had his issues with PEDs, and I think it was clenbuterol. And then he missed weight in the rematch with Yamanaka. So he's had no public goodwill at all. I don't know if anyone cares about it, but he's in this division as well. So it's going to be interesting to see if Luis Nery can sort of get in here with a Isaac Dogboe, Daniel Roman, Ray Vargas on the comeback, and how those fights would play out. Because those top 4 guys are highly talented fighters that I cannot wait to see sort of match up against each other. Quickly, though, I'm not going to talk much about the Big Baby Miller fight against Thomas and Dominic, mainly because it was a quick knockout, and mainly it was Thomas and Dominic. Big Baby showed me nothing more impressive about him. Came in at 317 pounds. Great. Cool. Fight someone that's relevant, please. Quickly on the prospects that were featured. Nikita Baby or whatever his name is, he looked highly skilled. Rashad Matai, whatever his name is, he looked highly skilled as well. Anthony Sims Jr., God, that guy, he might not have the highest ceiling, but I get that like Chris Algieri sense of him, where he's going to be a champion and he might beat some guys but not beat all of them, but he's a good fighter and he should definitely move down to 168 in my opinion. Rubisky's and Matt Canelo's next fight doesn't do 200,000 pay-per-view buys. I don't know. When guys have runs, like pay-per-view runs, when they do million upon million upon million, it's really hard to get off that curve. Oh my God, excuse me. I never sneeze on the show. It's really hard for guys to get off of that run, right? Especially if they're doing well. Canelo has done well. Like the Triple G fight, he performed pretty great in. I don't think it does 1 million, obviously, but I think it does 400,000. You know, I can say doing around that number. Canelo's star power is only going to get bigger, you know? So, who knows? Who knows, to be honest. What else? I think that's it for that card. Srisaket Sor Rungvisai versus Iron Diaz. Other than a knockdown, I should say, that Srisaket, arguably got knocked down. That should have been called one. He was dominant in this fight, relatively, in my opinion. Just bruised Iron Diaz around, beat him from post to post. Looked like he needed the tune-up, to be quite honest. Wasn't as active as I would want him to be. Let off on rounds when I didn't want him to be. It's just one of those things. Gary saying, is Canelo versus Fielding on pay-per-view? It can't be. Who's going to pay for that 2 weeks after Wilder versus Fury? Well, Wilder Fury is only going to do about 300,000 pay-per-view buys. Like there's still a huge U.S. pay-per-view market out there for a Canelo fight. Come on. Rubisky saying 400K, Matt. Wow, I don't think so, especially with a no-name opponent. Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's sure. I really don't care. I don't think the Wilder Fury fight would have any effect towards it, though. You have to remember that also, they have completely different demographics and markets. Like, let's be completely honest here. So I don't think they really have any effect towards the other. Potential intakes saying, Matt, you didn't mention the Nikolsky Solomon. What a debut. I'll be honest. I only saw the first round of that, and then I got distracted, and I never really caught back to it. I know everyone's saying it's bad, but I only saw the first round, and he looked good in the first round. So I don't know what happened. So obviously it's bad from what I've heard. It happens. Benjamin saying Wilder says 3 million pay-per-view buy. That's great. Wilder can say a lot of things. Does not mean it happens. One thing that I wish didn't happen, the Jack Catterall versus O'Hara Davies fight, I'll be quite honest. This fight was a little bit lackluster to me. Neither guy really had any pace to what they were doing. They never seemed to get out of first gear. Catterall was a little more active, and he just purely was throwing the jab. O'Hara Davies was only throwing the jab. That led to Catterall winning. But nothing really highly impressive from either guy. Neither guy seems to be at the world level quite yet, in my opinion. Nicola Adams versus Isabel Milan. I'll be honest, I saw a lot of people shitting on this fight and Nicola Adams on Twitter. I am shocked that she got that much hate. I thought she looked great. I thought it was a fun, entertaining fight. And at 4-0, fighting a female that is 22-4. Yeah, like I gotta give her a credit. And again, it's somebody that in 2012, she was one of 3 women to win a gold medal in the Olympics. Her, Clarissa Shields, and Katie Taylor. Those 2 other women get a lot of hype and respect. Nicola Adams does not. I don't know why. I think she's extremely talented. Shout out to her. Daniel Dubois having a unanimous decision win against Kevin Johnson. The fact that it went on 10 was just really sad. Kevin Johnson, though, to his credit, did a really good job of keeping Dubois' accuracy very low. Dubois had a lot of trouble placing his shots. Johnson did a good job of parrying them, blocking them, etc. And Dubois he's 8-0. He's still a very young prospect. And this was a good learning experience. And plus, a lot of rounds with a guy like Kevin Johnson. Good stuff for Daniel Dubois. What else? I believe that's it for the fight cards. And I didn't really look into the news because I didn't care, man. It was just there were so many fights. We went an hour just talking about the fights itself. So let's get to you guys' phone calls. Call in 323-870-4051. Press 1 to get in the queue. I'll say it again. 323-870-4051. Press 1 to get in the queue. If you are international, email me, mixedcombatradio@gmail.com. And also go to patreon.com/mixedcombatradio to help support the channel in any financial way. Plus, get extra podcasts weekly. I'm thinking I'm going to add another podcast weekly to Patreon. So, get hyped for that. I am purely thinking about names. I'll be honest. Like, that's the only reason I haven't started another podcast on Patreon, because I haven't thought of a name yet. I know that's really petty and vain of me, but that is the only reason why. But anyways, we're going to head out to Gary in Dallas. Good friend of the show. Gary, how you doing, man?
Doing good, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. Did you enjoy this weekend's fights in action?
I did. I thought the Vargas versus Dulorme fight was really good. I thought it was a really entertaining fight.
Yeah, it was.
And I know Eddie Hearn got this $1 billion to run DAZN, right? And it just seems like Vargas versus Dulorme is a co-main event on a free Showtime card, right? Like, if he's trying to get casuals to spend $10 a month, it seems like you're going to have to do better than Vargas versus Dulorme. And it was a good fight, so I'm not knocking the fight. It was an entertaining scrap. But, how many of your casual friends are going to spend $10 a month to watch Vargas versus Dulorme?
Very little. It's degenerates like me and you.
Right. So, you're not going to, they gave him $1 billion to put into this. I can't see how he recoups that money getting only the hard cards, right? Like, he's going to have to do better than Vargas versus Dulorme. I just, I don't like Eddie Hearn personally. I think he's a scumbag, but I don't want to see him fail, because this is a major investment into U.S. boxing. So if it works out, it's good for boxing. So I don't want to see him fail, but I can't see how this is going to recoup the $1 billion he put into this. If this is what you're giving us, you can see the crowd is half empty.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a bad look.
And then plus, obviously, it being on the same night as McGregor versus Khabib, which was a pop culture moment. That was just the worst timing of the world. That is Murphy's Law right there. Now overall, we obviously can see DAZN's overall schedule in the next 4 months, right? We have a pretty good idea of it. They have good months, but like you said, it's hardcore offerings. The World Boxing Super Series is for hardcores. That does not transcend at all to the U.S. casual sporting audience. Obviously, Matchroom USA has some good fights coming up. It seems like the Billy Joe Saunders, Demetrius Andrade fight is going ahead, even though that fight might not be the most exciting fight. That's a great fight on paper. I can't wait to see that. but I also know that casuals don't care about that. And honestly, there's really nothing that they can do to change it up and change the paradigm of them being on the bottom of all these networks with Fox, Showtime, ESPN, ESPN Plus all being ahead of them until they get some bigger names, until they get some PBC guys that are notable, until they get maybe a Canelo Alvarez in the Rocky Fielding fight. It's those things that are going to be game changers for them. Otherwise, they're going to be a niche product for a niche market.
Right, which is kind of where it is. Because, like, the ESPN app is half the price of the DAZN app.
Mm-hmm.
And the ESPN app gives you better fight. It gives you Terrence Crawford, and it gives you Manny Pacquiao. I mean, to a casual fan, what is a better draw? Crawford and Pacquiao or Vargas versus Dulorme? And they do have the World Boxing Super Series. The only problem is that that fight with Inoue, who could be a superstar with that power. That power is freakish for a guy at 118. But he's on at 4 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, nobody watched it. You know what I'm saying? I had to go look for it in the morning. So if I had to, I mean, I imagine that most people didn't see it at all. So you got a guy who could potentially be a superstar in small weight classes who nobody saw.
Yeah, but then also, I think we might be grossly overstating how much these guys can be superstars. Like in the U.S. at least, in the U.S. Because Inoue is either or is going to be a massive megastar in Japan, right? I think we're all in agreement about that. But in the U.S., I don't know if he ever becomes that. No offense to him, but I just don't think that the casual sporting audience in America cares about a guy 120 pounds knocking out people.
Okay, well, what if he fights Manny Rodriguez next at the Garden? You know what I'm saying? Like, you got the Puerto Rican fan base in New York, and Inoue can be, with that power, it's freakish. You think that fight could sell in New York?
I think it can sell in New York, but again, you have caveats there. You have Emmanuel Rodriguez, the Puerto Rican market in New York. It can obviously sell out maybe, let's say, the small theater in the Garden, right? It can play very well in there. But that still is a in-the-bubble fight. It's still in-the-bubble moment.
If you wanted to make it bigger, you got to put Inoue in front. People love a puncher, right? Like, people love better beat. Like, people love a puncher.
But
Inoue is more than a puncher, but he can be hit. But as far as offensively, he's offensively complete and has freakish power. Like, I know
I'm
they're
not
only
disputing
118 pounders, and that's not sexy to most people. But that one punch power is, and he clearly has that.
Look, unfortunately for Inoue, maybe the Japanese American market is a much bigger market in the U.S. that has just not been tapped into. I don't know. I doubt it, though, because we don't have evidence of it. But in the U.S., you have to be certain people or certain ethnicities to sell. You have to have a Mexican background. You have to have, if for Conor McGregor, he has an Irish background. There's a lot of Irish Americans. Or you have to at least speak English. You have to be a star in that way. And Inoue is not going to be that guy. He's going to be soft-spoken. He's going to stick to his thing, and he's just because people love power, and I agree, people do love power, doesn't mean you become a star. Power does not translate to stardom. Look at Triple G.
Yeah, Triple G's not a star like Pacquiao is a star, but Triple G is a crossover star. You ask your average sports fan who only watches boxing a few times a year, they know who Triple G is. They watch Triple G versus Canelo.
But right there, Gary. Right there, Gary. Canelo. Who is Inoue's Canelo? It's not Emmanuel Rodriguez.
You gotta hope the kid from Chicago, Josh Greer, turns out to be a superstar, because it would be him. Other than that, I can't think of anybody. I mean, at 118 pounds, there aren't many Americans to start with. There's not.
Yeah.
So yeah, he would need. Rasheed Warren, does that have any appeal? Is he 115 or 118?
He's 118. He's 118. But I don't think Rasheed Warren is. He's not a draw. Like that's not a Canelo. Like there is no Canelo out there for him. And for Manny Pacquiao, guy you brought up, who was a lower weight class guy who developed into a star, he had guys like Eric Morales to beat. And Marco Antonio Barrera, who had massive fan bases in the Mexican-American market. Like, there's not that parallel for Inoue right now. Maybe they will be and we just don't see it yet. But right at this moment, I don't see that path for Inoue to superstardom in the U.S. I just do not.
You're right. Yeah. What I'm saying is, in that tournament, and that 118-pound tournament, I think is going to be excellent.
Mm-hmm.
He's the best fighter in it, and he's the biggest star. And they put his fight on at a time when no one could find it. They put it at 4:00.
Well, no, that's not true. They put it on at a time that the Japanese audience in Japan would come out and see it. It was prime time in Japan. Like, we don't know the viewership it did in Japan, but it's assumed to be large. Like, they thought, let's put these two Japanese fighters, Kenshiro and Inoue, in a prime time Japanese slot instead of 4 a.m. in Japan, so the U.S. audience of 20,000 people can watch it live. That was their thought process.
And that thought process makes sense, but Eddie Hearn has a $1 billion investment.
That's not Eddie Hearn.
U.S. boxing.
That's not Eddie Hearn.
It's just DAZN. It has nothing to do with Eddie. It's just streamed on.
It's DAZN and World Boxing Super Series. That's the connection. That's why you don't see a Chris Mannix on it. That's why you don't see any of the DAZN Matchroom USA team attached to it. It had the World Boxing Super Series announcer. It had the World Boxing Super Series production quality and everything. That's why.
All right, that makes sense, then, right? Because they're not marketing this to the U.S. Period. Okay.
Yeah, and Eddie has no involvement with that financially or anything like that. That's not an Eddie event.
Okay. And the last thing I wanted to get to was Canelo.
Mm-hmm. Ooh.
Canelo versus a guy that almost no one's ever heard of. I can't see, and I'm not mad at Canelo, right? It's a stay busy fight, right? It was like, I wasn't expecting Canelo to fight until Cinco de Mayo. So when he takes this fight, it's like a bonus trap. It's like, okay. So like, I'm not mad at him because it was like either fight this guy or wait till May. So whatever. It's a bonus trap. But like, don't put it on pay-per-view then, right? Like, after Oscar De La Hoya beat Canelo Whitaker back in '97, he took a fight 2 months later against a guy named David Kamau that was on regular HBO in Texas. I remember that because I was there.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like a free gift for the fans. Like, thanks for supporting me. Here's a free one. That's not the plan that you think he has for Canelo here?
I have no idea what's the plan with Canelo, because obviously you have the parallel with Canelo. Like, Canelo had James Kirkland on free HBO, or, air quotes, free HBO. Right. However, I think Canelo coming off those two pay-per-views with Triple G, they might just roll the dice and say, let's do another one with Rocky Fielding, whether it be on Fox, ESPN, pay-per-view, whatever it is. Because remember, there's no network attached to this yet. There's a current bidding war for who gets this fight. I think they might roll the dice on it. Absolutely. It depends on what the deal is that they accept. Like, obviously, if they go to, let's say, DAZN, Rocky Fielding is a Eddie Hearn fighter, and DAZN offers them huge guarantees just to come on and do their fight on DAZN, there's no pay-per-view for that. But for Fox and Showtime, there's pay-per-view options for those networks. For ESPN, there's pay-per-view options for that network. So they might roll the dice on it. And even if it does, let's say 300,000 pay-per-view buys, 400,000 pay-per-view buys, they're still making money off of that. That's still a net positive for them. For Golden Boy, for Canelo, that's still good money.
It just seems like, he could do 300 to 400. I guess that's reasonable. You're asking them to spend $85 on the Triple G fight, which they did, and then I'm guessing you're going to get that this one is going to cost at least $70, plus the Wilder versus Fury fight's probably going to be $70. That's a lot of money. You're asking the casual fan to.
No, I completely agree. I completely agree, Gary. This is not me saying that they should make a pay-per-view. I'm just saying that they could make a pay-per-view. Financially speaking, there's incentives. They did Canelo versus Liam Smith pay-per-view, and Liam Smith was equally unknown as Rocky Fielding.
Yeah. If it does 300, they make money and everybody's happy. So I guess, from a business standpoint, why not put it on pay-per-view? We'll still make money on it. I guess you're right about that. It's sucks for the casual fan, right? If you want me to spend $70 to watch him beat up on a guy named Rocky Fielding, I've never heard of.
Yep.
That sucks. Yeah.
And not only that, not only that, Gary, but in December we have, like you said, Wilder Fury. We have obviously Canelo, Rocky Fielding potentially on pay-per-view. Also 2 UFC pay-per-views that weekend. I know you may not be the UFC guy, obviously, but people out there are. We have a lot of pay-per-views that month. And for the UK fan, all that's pay-per-view. And on top of that, they have potentially DeGale versus Chris Eubank is rumored to be on pay-per-view for ITV. And also Josh Warrington versus Carl Frampton, pay-per-view as well. So December, casual fans, it's going to be a tough month for us, or even hardcores, because it's a lot of pay-per-views. Thank you, Gary, for the call. Always appreciate it, man. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to head out of here. Hope everyone had a great day. Hope everyone enjoyed the fights. You know, it's a crazy sport that we watch. You know, we have Khabib McGregor-like brawls. We have Bo versus Galata-like brawls. And we accept it all. We accept all comers in this sport from all walks of life. That is both a very good thing and both a very bad thing sometimes. But I hope you like this show. Hit the like button, share the show, subscribe, patreon.com/Mixed Combat Radio. I'll be back tomorrow, same time as always, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, live on YouTube, obviously podcast form, on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, etc. I'm Matt, the Hipster Hunter. Hipsters here, haters beware. Find me at Matt Hunter MCR, all platforms. Peace.